If confidence ever wore a shirt and tie, Isaac would have been its perfect model. Every morning, he strolled into the glass doors of Silver Crest Consulting like the ground itself owed him rent. He loved the way the security guard sprang to his feet and greeted, "Good morning, sir." He enjoyed how the reception desk would suddenly go silent because everyone paused just to say hello. And he relished those hushed voices whispering, "That's him." In Isaac's mind, he was already the man next in line, and soon he would be the man. He reminded himself of this each morning as he tugged his tie, gazed at his reflection in the elevator mirror, and smiled, because the mirror never argued. Isaac was the firm's brightest star. Clients adored him because he delivered early, under budget, and with precision. That only fueled his pride, because he believed results were all that mattered. If he spoke bluntly or carried himself like the world owed him space, people needed to understand. Excellence was never shy. He hadn't grown up wealthy, though he rarely said it. The hunger from his childhood still burned in his chest like a restless engine. His father, a carpenter, found joy only when wood obeyed his hands. His mother constantly reminded him to keep his head high so no one could trample his dignity. Isaac swallowed that advice like daily medicine, and with every dose of praise from school, colleagues, and strangers, it hardened into something heavy inside him. But Isaac didn't care, he was winning. He had dated Hannah, who was gentle, Miriam, who was full of life, and Sarah, who never forgot to say please or thank you to waiters. Yet they all left him for the same reason. You love your reflection more than any person. Isaac brushed it off. To him, respect was earned through results, and when he became manager, the right woman would naturally respect him. The wrong ones could keep walking away. His colleague Eli often cautioned him, "Respect is like currency. If you spend it all on yourself, you'll have nothing left when you need others." But Isaac only laughed. "I don't care. My work pays for me." Inside Silvercrest, Isaac was the star analyst, handling tough accounts like a pilot gripping a trembling aircraft. But teamwork was never his strength. He cut colleagues short in meetings with, "Let me help you say it properly." He polished others' brilliant ideas and branded them as the team's. He sent late-night emails at 11:58 p.m. demanding replies by 7 a.m. the next morning. When complaints arose, he dismissed them. "We're building a legacy, not a playground." To him, that was leadership. What he didn't see was that people feared him, some were drained by him, and a few quietly wished to see him fall. Not out of cruelty, but because they were human. His boss, Benjamin, admired Isaac's results but not his attitude. Time after time, Benjamin reminded him that people were part of the project. Isaac would nod, but his nod meant only that he'd heard the words, not the meaning. He kept moving forward, convinced that Benjamin's chair would soon be his. He even imagined the paint colors for his future office and thought of buying an expensive, lush plant to sit by the window. He walked with confidence, smiling, waiting. Often he would brag to Eli, "It's almost time." And Eli would reply, "When you rise, remember to bend." But Isaac scoffed, "Why bend? I'll wave from the top." He carried on like this until the day HR sent a calendar invite for a leadership announcement. Isaac was so sure it was his moment that he bought a crisp blue suit, shiny new shoes, and arrived early. He sat in the front row, rehearsing a speech that pretended to be humble but wasn't. Eli nudged him and whispered, "Congratulations in advance." Isaac smiled like a man already savoring the cake. Then Benjamin cleared his throat. Silvercrest thrives because of leadership, and leadership is something we weigh carefully. That's why today, I will be stepping aside for new leadership. Isaac's heart began to pound. And then Benjamin said, "Please welcome our new strategy division manager, Rebecca Jacobs." The room froze. A young woman entered calmly, a file tucked under her arm. She shook hands, smiled politely, and said, "Hi, good to meet you all." The room erupted in applause. But Isaac didn't clap. His smile dropped from his face like a loose button snapping off a shirt. He stared at Benjamin as if the man had misread the name. But Benjamin never looked back at him. Rebecca spoke briefly, thanking the board for their trust, praising the work already done, and promising to listen first, then act. Everyone agreed quietly, because the words carried both gentleness and authority. Yet Isaac remained still, his anger burning inside him. When the applause faded, he suddenly rose and stormed out before anyone could hold him back. He marched straight into Benjamin's office, not bothering to knock, and snapped, "After everything I've given this company, you bring in a younger woman to rule over me?" Benjamin calmly crossed his arms. "Sit down, please." But Isaac refused. Benjamin continued regardless. "Isaac, no one doubts your brilliance. But leadership requires more than talent. It demands memory, because people always remember how you make them feel." Isaac shot back, "Numbers don't have feelings." Benjamin corrected him gently. "People do. And people are the ones who carry numbers." At that moment, Isaac felt crushed. He went to the break room and drank some water, but it tasted bitter, like vinegar. He glanced around and caught people smiling, probably mocking his defeat. Two junior staff whispered nearby, "At least now we can breathe. Maybe we'll be able to ask questions without being cut off." Isaac froze, holding the cup, feeling like a fool. He texted Eli, "They put a little girl in my chair." Eli immediately called back and cautioned, "Watch your words, Isaac." But Isaac snapped, "I earned that seat." Eli sighed, "Maybe you earned the numbers but lost the people." Still, Isaac refused to accept the shame. He sat at his desk, opened a spreadsheet, and stared at it. In his mind, he swore he would never bow. If Rebecca wanted the seat, she would have to fight for it. That night he went home with his chest tight, and the next morning, he woke up ready for battle. When Rebecca officially started, she walked from desk to desk, asking what people were working on. She listened closely without looking at her phone, took notes politely, and thanked even the juniors. Later, she called a short meeting. "We'll keep what works but fix what hurts. We'll do it together. I won't pretend I know everything, so please, teach me what you know." The team relaxed, impressed by her sincerity. But Isaac stood at the back, arms folded, like a stone wall. Rebecca later scheduled a one-on-one with him. When he didn't show up, she went directly to his desk. "Isaac, can we talk?" Without looking at her, he muttered, "Send an email." She frowned. "I already did." He shrugged. "Didn't see it." Rebecca paused, then smiled calmly. "All right, let's meet at 2 p.m. She left, but Isaac never appeared. Even when she gently followed up, he replied at 6 p.m. with only one line, "I'm busy." She chose to ignore the slight, believing patience was her strongest tool. She later assigned him a small task to test workflow. Her brief had 3 clear steps with a deadline. But Isaac deliberately rewrote it with 6 steps, no deadline, and even sent it directly to the client before she could review. The disrespect continued in meetings. He often cut her off with, "What she means is," before twisting her point into his own words. Rebecca would pause, let him finish, then respond calmly, "Thank you, Isaac." As I was saying, behind her back he mocked her as Harvard princess, but she pretended not to hear, always trying to keep peace. Still, Isaac resisted every effort. Once she brought him coffee and reasoned, "Isaac, your work is gold. But gold needs a setting, and that setting is the team. We need your strength, but we also need your warmth." He smirked coldly. "Warmth is for blankets." Rebecca drew a steady breath. "Our clients buy confidence and care." He countered sharply, "Wrong. Clients only buy results." Isaac even began meeting juniors secretly, giving them tasks that clashed with her plans. He sent late-night instructions that caused morning chaos. When she requested updates, he'd send broken links, then finally deliver a report at 8:59 p.m. with a curt note, "Done." At that point, Rebecca knew, this wasn't just resistance. It was war. The team eventually split into 2 camps. Some clung to Isaac's old authority, while a few supported Rebecca. Benjamin noticed the growing tension, but chose not to step in. He wanted Rebecca to prove she could lead her own team. Weeks later, a major client presentation came up. Rebecca laid out a structured plan with timelines and a draft narrative that tied everyone's work together like a puzzle. She asked for feedback by Friday. But on Thursday night, Isaac blindsided her with a completely new version, rearranging everything, and even copied the client for transparency. Rebecca stayed silent that night. But the next morning, She held a stand-up meeting. We'll present one voice. That voice will be ours. Not mine, not his, but ours. She then asked Isaac to walk through his edits. To everyone's surprise, he did so quickly and without protest. Still, Rebecca quietly returned to her desk, documented every instance of his sabotage, and sent it to HR for record. Then she wrote Isaac a separate note. Please direct all client communications through me as agreed. Also, attend our alignment session at 2 p.m. today. But when 2 p.m. came, she waited, and waited some more, but Isaac never showed up. By Monday morning, the skies hung low and heavy, as though they already sensed a storm was near. It was the long-awaited day of the major client presentation for Alone Tech Industries, a deal worth millions. A contract like this brought recognition, awards, and headlines. Rebecca had spent 2 solid weeks preparing, carefully piecing together everyone's work like a patchwork quilt. Isaac's responsibility was straightforward but crucial. Handle the numbers, deliver them exactly as planned, and stick to the flow so the narrative remained flawless. By 9 a.m., the boardroom was packed. Rebecca began the pitch, guiding the clients through the strategy slides with ease. Everything flowed perfectly, until it was Isaac's turn. She gave him their rehearsed signal, a subtle nod. But Isaac, still smarting from his wounded pride, smirked and instead unveiled a completely different presentation. He pulled out a separate deck, one he had secretly put together over the weekend, unseen by anyone. Standing tall, he addressed the room with confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe there's a smarter way to approach your expansion. The clients looked startled. Rebecca's chest tightened as Isaac boldly contradicted everything she had just presented. Around the table, colleagues shifted in unease. Some exchanged nervous glances. Others watched with a mix of fear and fascination. Isaac's ideas were undeniably brilliant, but they had no connection to the strategy everyone had agreed on. By the end, the clients looked bewildered, cautious, and unconvinced. The warmth in the room vanished, replaced by a cold uncertainty. The CEO politely thanked them, and said they would think it over. But everyone understood what that meant. The deal was lost. Silence filled the office as people returned to their desks. Rebecca went back to hers without a word, but 2 hours later Isaac received an email marked formal query. Subject: Query for insubordination. Isaac, your actions during today's Alone Tech pitch directly contradicted the agreed strategy and caused significant damage to client trust. Please explain why you deviated from instructions without prior review. Rebecca Jacobs. Isaac read it and laughed bitterly, the sound sharp enough to make nearby co-workers flinch. Without knocking, he stormed into Rebecca's office, tossed the printed letter on her desk, and snapped. You're lucky to even have me here. If you knew how much I've done for this company, you'd be thanking me instead of sending childish queries. You think a foreign degree makes you better than me. Rebecca remained seated, calm and steady. This isn't personal, Isaac. It's procedure. We agreed on one strategy. You broke alignment, and the deal slipped through because of it. This is your first warning. I expect better. Isaac scoffed, turned without a word, and slammed the door so hard the glass rattled. In the lunchroom, whispers circled. This guy is digging his own grave, one murmured. Pride won't let him breathe small, another replied. Isaac ignored them, grabbed his coffee, and muttered under his breath, I am untouchable. Afterward, Rebecca tried to restore some balance. She gave Isaac space, managed meetings carefully, and even reduced his client-facing tasks to minimize friction. But Isaac took it as an insult. So he sent another storm. Rebecca assigned him a financial risk report for an upcoming investor presentation. She sent the brief 3 times, gave him 7 days, and even reminded him gently on day 5. Still no response. By the morning of the deadline, her inbox was empty. Walking to his desk, she said, Isaac, I really need that report now. The deck goes out in an hour. Without looking up, he muttered, I didn't do it. Rebecca blinked. You didn't do it? Yes, he replied flatly. I don't take orders from kids. I've been here longer than you've been paying taxes. The entire office went silent. Rebecca simply nodded, returned to her desk, and sent another query. Subject: Second query for noncompliance. Isaac, Your failure to deliver the assigned task despite multiple reminders is unacceptable and jeopardize the investor presentation. This is your second official warning. Please treat it with utmost seriousness. Rebecca Jacobs. This time HR was copied. When Isaac received it, he printed the letter, waved it in the lunchroom, and announced loudly, "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Best Employee in Disobedience Award." Nervous laughter spread, some forced, some genuine. Later, Ellie caught him in the parking lot. "Isaac, listen to me. You're walking straight into fire. They're building a case. One more query and company policy demands termination." But Isaac brushed him off. "Let them try. They wouldn't dare lose me." What he didn't know was that Rebecca was documenting everything, and HR was keeping close watch. Everyone else saw the cracks widening. Everyone except Isaac. The final strike came faster than expected. Silvercrest had secured a massive potential client, and Rebecca assigned Isaac an essential role. She sent him a detailed email with responsibilities and deadlines. He responded once with a curt, "Noted." Presentation day arrived. The client sat waiting in the boardroom. Coffee was poured, the projector glowed, and Rebecca began with her opening remarks. When she called on Isaac to present his section, silence. His chair was empty. She dialed his phone. No answer. Emailed him. No reply. Isaac never showed up. Rebecca carried the presentation alone, fielded all the questions, and still managed to win the deal. But she documented every detail. The next day, HR summoned Isaac. Rebecca sat across from him as the HR director slid an envelope forward. "Isaac, this is your third query. Effective immediately, your employment is terminated." Isaac stared at the letter, then at Rebecca. His pride screamed louder than his pulse. "You can't do this." "Company policy can," she answered firmly. And just like that, Isaac rose slowly, gathered his things, and walked out of the office for the last time. No one stood, no one spoke. The silence told him what he had never realized. They hadn't respected him. They had only tolerated him. For the first week, Isaac stayed home, convinced Silvercrest would call him back. He imagined Benjamin regretting the decision, clients demanding his return. But the call never came. He began applying elsewhere, 10 firms, then 20, then 50. In interviews, he claimed he left Silvercrest by choice. "I decided it was time to grow elsewhere," he would say. Interviewers would nod politely, and quickly, and never call back. 2 months later, his savings dried up. He finally accepted an offer at a struggling startup where his new manager, a 28-year-old fresh graduate, spoke to him like an intern, even sending him for printouts. He swallowed the humiliation, because rent had to be paid. Now he sat in a cubicle smaller than his old chair, earning less than half his former salary, taking instructions from people who barely knew half of what he did. One evening, passing by Silvercrest's glass doors, Isaac stopped. The building still buzzed, the reception alive with activity. He stood there for a long while, then shook his head and whispered to himself, "I thought I was untouchable, but I was replaceable all along. Now I understand what Ellie meant. Respect is a currency, and I spent mine selfishly on myself." Thank you for watching this story. Share your thoughts in the comments, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe for more stories. Stay blessed.